The Glock Model 27 in 40 Smith & Wesson. This is one of the baby Glocks. These were introduced in 1996. That was 10 years after the first Glocks were actually imported into the United States. Gadsden Glock created the Glock, designed the Glock in 1982. That's when it was adopted by the Austrian military. And of course, you know the story from there. I mean, this is one of the most popular handguns in the world. The Model 17, which was Glock's original pistol, even though it carried 17 rounds in the magazine, the reason the name is 17 is because it was his 17th patent. First thing we're going to do, of course, is we're going to drop the magazine and check the pistol. It is unloaded. I'm a big fan of Glock, as many of you know, and it's just the simplicity of the pistol. There are other pistols that I own that are actually of higher quality, but as far as durability, as far as price, and the reputation that Glock has, it's unsurpassed. And these are just fantastic pistols, have gone through a lot of changes over the years. And in fact, all the way to the 4th generation, which is available now. But this Glock was actually given to me as a gift. My birthday was this past weekend, so I've been wanting the Glock 27. I have a Glock 26 in 9mm, and they are fairly identical. There's just a few differences, obviously with the barrel size, but weight and dimensions, again, are identical. Both of them are Gen 3. I really personally like the Gen 3 better, and a lot of you guys I know are big Gen 4 fans. I just had a few hiccups with Gen 4 that kind of brought me back to the Gen 3. While they're still making Gen 3s, and they offer Gen 3 brand new on their website, you know, you have an option of Gen 3 or Gen 4. The total length is 6.54 inches. It's 4.17 inches in height, and with all Glock slides, it's 1.18 inches, just slightly over 1 inch. And the barrel length is just under 3.5 inches at 3.42 inches. Unloaded, 1.51 pounds. Fully loaded, 1 pound, 11.4 ounces. Now here we have the 3 size comparisons with the subcompact, the compact, and then the full size. Now these are actually 9mm. This is a Model 17 in 4th generation. This is a Model 19 3rd generation. But they're identical to the 23 and the 22. Now to give you a good size comparison, here are the 3 grip sizes you can see. We have the Model 27 obviously on top, and then the mid-size or the compact version, you can see the difference in the grip, and then on the full size. So this is really going to lend itself a lot more to concealed carry. And then here we have the different barrel lengths, and as you can see, there is a major difference. Also, the Model 27 is bull-nosed, so that really makes it a little easier to get in and out of concealment holsters than the Model 23 or the Model 22. And just to give you a little comparison, here is the 9-in-1 for the 27, the 13-in-1 for your Model 23, and then your 15-in-1 for your Model 22. It's like little soldiers lined up. And other than that, this is identical to the Model 23 and the Model 22, just that it's got the slide lopped off here and then the grip down here. Now that gives it a decent amount of thickness for concealed carry, but I typically carry a Model 26 all the time, and it's very comfortable once you get used to it. But this is one of the very popular concealed carry options, especially for those that carry a Glock 23 or the 22, especially law enforcement. This is a very popular round with law enforcement. One of the good things too, though, that I really like about the difference between the Model 27 and 26 is a lot of times with 40 caliber you lose a number of rounds between the two if you have a same size pistol. And the Glock 27 holds 9-in-1, while the Glock 26 holds 10-in-1. So you're only really losing 1 round for a much stronger self-defense caliber. Not to take away from the 9mm, because I am a big fan of 9mm, and with the self-defense loads that we have today, this is an excellent concealed carry and self-defense pistol. But the 40 caliber obviously gives you more bang for your buck, and really the comparison with the price as far as ammo is pretty comparable. 40 caliber usually is just a little more expensive than the 9mm, but not a whole lot. But another consideration between the 9mm and the 40 is that the 9mm is a NATO round. It is a military round, while the 40 caliber is typically a law enforcement round. Now, a lot of law enforcements are starting to kind of drift back to the 9mm, mainly because of recoil. And that's another point, is that the 9mm recoil is going to be somewhat less than your 40 caliber. Your 40 caliber is going to be a little snappy. And that's one of the differences specifically where most people really go back to a 9mm if they don't really care for the snappiness of the 40. But the big thing is you have power versus recoil. And you know, the more recoil you have, that means the more force you have going out of the business end of the barrel. And so, you know, you have to weigh all these things out when you're trying to decide what's the best pistol for you. We're going to shoot a few rounds with the 27 and the 26 just to give you a visual on the recoil. First, the 26. The 27 and 40 Smith & Wesson. There's definitely a noticeable difference with the 40 over the 9mm with a little more recoil, a little bit snappier, but really it was not difficult to get right back on target with either one. But the 9mm is definitely less felt recoil, but the 40 has more power. Now the Glock is called the safe action pistol. And you know, a lot of people think that because there's no external safety that there aren't any. But of course you have your trigger safety here, and this little blade has to be depressed before the trigger can fire. Without that blade being depressed, it prohibits the trigger from firing. It has to be pushed in before you can release the striker. Also inside are two internal safeties. And so this is called a safe action pistol, and it is safe. But like any pistol, you need to observe your safety rules regardless. The standard trigger pull on Glock pistols is 5.5 pounds. And you have some take up, and then you'll have a snap, and then your reset is a very audible snap. And Glock triggers, I've been shooting it standard for years. But one of the things I like to do with all my Glock pistols is at least polish up the critical parts of the trigger assembly. And it's not really that difficult to do, to smooth out the parts. You need to be careful. There are a couple of areas that are critical that you don't need to touch. But if you really, you know, any factory, they're putting out products at a reasonable price, and the finish is not hand finished. And so it's really amazing what difference it makes just doing a little bit of polishing on certain parts of the trigger. Of course, you can also send this to a competent gunsmith to really do a serious trigger job. I know Wheaton Arms does an excellent job. I've had a couple of pistols that have had trigger jobs done, and it really is superior. And you know, you can change out the connector and you can do some things like that. But really, overall, the Glock trigger is what it is, and you just get used to shooting any pistol you have. And that's the big thing, is getting used to it. You know, you can have a super fantastic trigger, but if you're not getting trigger time out at the range, it's really not doing you all that much good. Triggers are very important, and the Glock trigger is just, it's what it is. The Glock sights, which I like, are the U-shape at the back and a dot at the front. There are a ton of different aftermarket sights that you can get, night sights, fiber optic. The sky's the limit really with Glock. Also accessories and anything, holsters, whatever you need, usually you can find them for the Glock pistol. Now this is the Gen 3, which has the standard texturing, has some finger grooves here. This is a vast improvement over the Gen 1 and Gen 2. Of course, it doesn't have the accessory rail because it is a very subcompact pistol. But all the other Gen 3 pistols have the accessory rail. Now compared to the new Gen 4, here you can see the texturing that you're going to get on a Gen 4 27. It's the rough texturing, it's small little pyramids, and it does feel very nice. In fact, I'm going to actually put Talon grips on these. I've already got them ordered because this is somewhat slick. On my 26, I added some grips here just on the side panels just to give me a little more oomph when I'm grabbing the pistol. And one of the things too that you're going to lose by going with Gen 3 is you're not going to have replaceable back straps. With the Gen 4, you're going to have a thinner grip without a back strap. You put the second grip on your Gen 4 and it matches the Gen 3 profile. Of course, the magazine release right here. Now on the Gen 4, you're going to have an enlarged magazine release, and then also it is reversible, which it's not on the Gen 3. The trigger system as well has been changed mainly because they've reduced the back strap, so they had to change the trigger system in the Gen 4s. Again, I've had a couple of issues with Gen 4s. I know a lot of guys love them and have had no issues, but for me, I've just had a couple, and sometimes when that happens, I get a little bit prejudiced, and so I just have been sticking with overall my Gen 3s, and while they're still available. And I think another reason why Gen 3s have been left on the production line of Glock is because they can be sold in California and some of the other states that have passed some of these new gun laws, whereas the Gen 4s are not allowed. One of the things about all the Gen 4s too is they now have a double recoil spring guide rod system. But one of the things about the 27 and the 26 subcompact Glocks is they already had a double recoil spring in the pistol. So you're not really losing anything there. The biggest thing I think as far as what you're losing with the Gen 3 is the back strap. Otherwise, I think the Gen 3 is an excellent choice. Now, of course, all Glock pistols, the smallest version of the pistol will fit all the magazines. So you have your 9-round magazine. You also, for your Model 23, you have your 13-round magazine that fits really nicely in the pistol. Then you go with your 15-round Glock 22 magazine, or you can go with the extended 22-round 40 caliber magazine for the Glock pistol. It functions in all of them. Here we have one of the 15-round magazines of the Glock 22. As you can see, it rides below the frame, but we're going to check it out. To be expected. Now, one of the things I really love about having the baby Glock or the subcompacts is that you can carry your standard magazine, which would be a 9-round magazine here, and in my back pocket I can have a 15-round magazine for a lot more capacity. So it really makes it kind of nice to have that availability with a small pistol. Having 15 rounds of 40 is really unusual to be able to carry as a backup. Most of your small compact pistols, are single stack, and so you're not really going to be able to get that kind of capacity. And I guess that's one of the reasons why I really like carrying the baby Glocks is, I do carry other pistols. In fact, I've been carrying a SIG P290 for a while, which I really love, but it's very limited to magazine count for my round count. With the Model 26, it's a little bit bigger, or the Model 27, but the round capacity is much greater. It's really just a trade-off on what you're comfortable with. Really, to be honest with you, 6 or 7 rounds in a pistol should be adequate. But for me, I'm just kind of like that. I like to have the extra rounds, but just because you never know. Disassembly of the Glock's really easy. Just remove your magazine, make sure the gun is unloaded. Then you pull the trigger. Right here are 2 tabs. I'm going to pull those down, let the slide just come forward. Here we have the double recoil springs. This really helps with recoil. Your barrel comes right out. Then of course you have your slide, very well done. Has the nice non-carburized nitride finish. I know they were using Tenifer for a long time, but I think they've changed it around. Just an excellent finish on these Glocks. Very hard slide. And of course the frame is just super lightweight. You have your slide rails here and here. Trigger assembly. Reassemble, place your barrel in. Guide rod, spring. Slide back on the frame. Ready to go. One of the personal things that I love about Glock, there's a lot of guys that love Glock, there's a lot that hate Glock. They just don't like the way it looks, don't like the way it feels. When I first got my Glock back in around 1986, they had just been introduced. And I saw it and I thought, that's kind of ugly. And until I took it out to the range. And that's really what changed my whole opinion about Glock, was how accurate it was, how reliable, how dependable. And the other thing that I like, there are a lot of new pistols out. In fact, I just got an HK P30 that I love it. But one of the things I love about Glock is how thin. There's just nothing here on the side. It's just really simple. You just pick it up. It is what it is, and it's exceptional, and it's really hard to beat. Of course, out at the range, no big surprises. The gun handled extremely well. Of course, no malfunctions, no failure to feeds. It was just very smooth. The 9mm comparison was definitely a difference in recoil. The 40 being a little more snappy, but very manageable. and easy to get on target, even with this short barrel. I mean, a barrel under 3.5 inches, you know, I was shooting at 15 yards on those steel plates and those little paddles and able to hit them with ease. So just an excellent self-defense weapon, great for concealed carry. No, it's not the smallest on the market, but when you grab hold of it, you've got really something to hold on to. And in .40 Smith & Wesson, that's important. The Glock 27 is an excellent concealed carry option. You've got a lot of power with .40 Smith & Wesson. You have the small size of the baby Glock, the dependability of the Glock. I think if you're looking for a good concealed carry option and you want a few extra rounds, I think the Glock 40 with the Model 27 is an exceptional pistol. And then if you really want to go with 9mm, the Model 26 is hard to beat. Be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic. Is that I have a 10-rounder in the magazine. They already had the double recoil magazine. Also on the Gen 4, you have an enlarged. Magazine. Okay, the different size comparison. That's when the baby Glocks were introduced. All right, 96.